You know, deep inside your body, right now, your blood is telling a story. It's whispering secrets about your health, but its language isn't made of words, it's made of waves. In this explainer, we're going to crack that code. We are going to learn how doctors can literally listen in on our arteries and veins, all thanks to the incredible science of Doppler ultrasound.
All right, let's just jump right in. Take a look at this. It's called a spectral waveform, and yeah, I know what you're thinking. It just looks like some random squiggly line, right? But trust me, by the end of our time here, you'll be able to look at this very line and see a crystal clear story about the health of one of your most vital organs.
So to decode that squiggle, we first need to understand our toolkit. Ultrasound gives us three main ways of looking inside. First, there's B mode. That's just the basic black and white grayscale image of the anatomy. Then we can switch on color Doppler, which you see there in the middle, to show us where blood is flowing. But the real star of our show today is that third tool, Spectral Doppler. This is the magic that generates that detailed waveform and tells us not just where blood is moving, but exactly how it's moving.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the simple physics behind it all, what I call the ambulance siren effect. Then we'll cover the three key rules for reading these waveforms. After that, we'll use that new knowledge to spot the telltale signature of a blockage, see these principles in action all over the body, and finally, we'll tie it all together.
Okay, first stop on our tour, the ambulance siren effect. This is the core principle, the foundation that makes everything else we're going to talk about even possible.
So here's the thing. You already know the Doppler effect, even if you don't recognize the name. You hear it every single time an ambulance passes by. As it's racing towards you, the siren is super high-pitched, right? Near, near, near. And the second it passes you, the pitch drops way down. Near, near. That's the Doppler effect. Well, ultrasound uses that exact same principle. The probe sends out sound waves, and your tiny red blood cells are the ambulances. Cells moving towards the probe send back a higher-pitched signal. Cells moving away send back a lower one. It's really as simple as that.
So now that we know how we're getting the signal, let's figure out how to read it. And it really comes down to three essential rules of the road for interpreting these waveforms.
Rule number one is all about the Doppler angle. This is literally just the angle between the ultrasound beam and the blood vessel itself. And here is the absolute key. For an accurate reading, that angle has to be less than 60 degrees. I mean, think about it. If the beam hits the vessel at a perfect 90 degrees, like you see in that diagram, the blood cells aren't really moving toward or away from the probe at all. They're just moving side to side. And if there's no movement toward or away, there's no Doppler effect to measure. We need that angle to see the motion.
Okay, rule number two is understanding something called aliasing. And the best way to think about it is this. Have you ever seen a video where a car is driving forward, but its wheels look like they're spinning backward? That's because the camera's frame rate just can't keep up with the speed of the wheel. Well, aliasing in Doppler is the exact same phenomenon. When blood flow is just too fast for the machine's settings, the top of that waveform gets chopped off and wraps around to the bottom, making it look like it's flowing in reverse. And our third and final rule is the resistive index, or RI. This is a brilliant little clue that tells us what's happening downstream from where we're measuring. Think of it like a traffic report for your arteries. A high RI means there's a roadblock or a traffic jam up ahead. A low RI, that means it's an open highway and the blood is just flowing nice and easy. And this slide really shows you the two main types of flow you'll see. So look at that waveform on the left. That's a low resistance pattern. See how there's always forward flow, always blood moving above that baseline? That's what you see in arteries that feed our vital organs, the brain, the kidneys. They need blood constantly. Now look at the one on the right. That sharp peak is a high resistance pattern. This is for places like your resting muscles. See how the flow almost stops or even dips below the line for a second? That little dip is telling us the road ahead is more constricted.
All right, now that we have the rules of the road down, let's put them to work for their most important job, finding a dangerous blockage, or what doctors call a stenosis.
You know, spotting a stenosis is kind of like reading a three-act play. Act 1 happens upstream of the blockage. The blood basically hits a wall, so the waveform becomes high resistance. Act 2 is at the blockage itself. The blood has to squeeze through this tiny opening, so its velocity just skyrockets. And then in Act 3, downstream, after all that chaos, the flow becomes really weak and slow. And that weak, slow Act 3 flow actually has a specific name. Tardus parvis. It's Latin for, you guessed it, slow and weak. Just look at that waveform in the middle there. Instead of a quick, sharp peak, it's kind of lazy and rounded. Seeing a Tardus parvis waveform is a huge red flag. It's the smoking gun that tells a doctor, hey, there is a major blockage somewhere upstream from here.
Okay, so we've got the theory down pat. Now let's put it into practice and take a quick tour to see what these waveforms actually look like inside the body.
First up, the carotid arteries. These are the big ones that feed your brain. A normal internal carotid artery, the ICA, should be low resistance. I mean, the brain is a vital organ, right? It needs constant flow. But with a stenosis, you see those classic signs we just talked about. Extremely high velocity right at the point of the blockage, and then that telltale tardus parvus waveform further downstream. Spotting this can literally help prevent a stroke.
And you know what? It's the exact same story in the renal arteries that supply your kidneys. Normally you've got a nice low-resistance flow, but if there's a stenosis, we see that crazy high-velocity spike, often over 200 centimeters per second, and then, deep inside the kidney itself, we find that tardus parvus waveform. It's a clear signal of the blockage upstream that could be causing things like high blood pressure.
Now, the liver gives us a really unique and kind of dramatic example. Normally, blood in the main portal vein flows towards the liver. Doctors call this hepatopetal flow. But when the liver gets really sick and scarred, pressure builds up like a dam. The flow can slow down, it can stop completely, or, and this is wild, it can reverse direction entirely, flowing away from the liver. That reversal is called hepatofugal flow, and it's a very clear sign of a serious condition called portal hypertension.
So let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture, connecting these squiggly lines all the way back to human wellness.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? Well, it's not about memorizing hundreds of different squiggly lines. It's about what this slide says. If you understand the basic principles, resistance, velocity, and that three-act story of a blockage, you have the fundamental tools to decode what you're seeing in almost any part of the body.
So, there you have it. We've cracked the code. We've learned to read the secret language of our own circulation, a story told in waves and whispers of flow. It kind of makes you wonder, right? Now that we know how to listen to this one story, what other hidden tales are our bodies just waiting to tell us, if only we can find the right way to listen?